Hi, it's Winton Churchill with the Barefoot Consultants, and I'd like to welcome Wes Powell on the line. He's one of our certified Barefoot Consultants professionals, and Wes is currently living in the mountains southwest of Denver, but he's lived in Thailand for 5 years and Indonesia for 7. His background primarily is with a major oil company as a geoscientist, and he's done that for 33 years. And using his words, he was kicked to the curb somewhere along the way, as many of us were in our careers, and is now in his next career helping baby boomers figure out how to do this stuff. So, Wes, welcome to the call.
Thank you very much, Wynn. It's great to be here.
Great. Well, you've got an important topic for us this evening, and there's a lot of confusion around this topic, and I wanted to encourage people to pay close attention because your intuitive reasoning process may cause you to arrive at a place that's not optimum for moving forward and starting your freelance career. So with that, Wes, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Wynn. I would imagine that there's a fair number of people on the call tonight whose ultimate goal is to either retire or move overseas. I know that's certainly one of my goals when I get ready to retire. So tonight I'd like to talk to you about and share with you 3 reasons why you might want to consider starting your freelance business before you move abroad.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, if you wanted to run a business and then move overseas, that was not an easy thing to do. Communications were poor, there was no internet, and it really was a difficult task for a lot of people, especially if they wanted to move overseas. But, in today's freelance economy, that's really an easily doable option these days because, you can get internet everywhere, just about now. So it's a much more easier, deal to accomplish today than it used to be. So, a question people may ask themselves before they move overseas is, should I start my freelance business before I move or wait until I get to my new destinations before I start? So tonight I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why you might want to consider doing it or starting your freelance business before you have to take into consideration. For example, do I rent or do I buy? What type of visa do I need? Do I sell everything I own and buy new stuff at my new foreign location? Or do I pack everything up and ship it to my new home? So there's obviously a lot of distractions that come with moving overseas. But, your income stream shouldn't be one of them. I mean, after all, one of the reasons we move overseas is for a more laid-back lifestyle. So I think the number one reason why you would want to start your business before you move overseas is just to reduce the amount of stress. I mean, we just mentioned several reasons that can add a lot of stress to your life, but if you have your income stream and your business established before you make the move, then once you make the move, you can get up and running quickly, and because you've already, established your business. So it's going to reduce the amount of stress that you have to deal with.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, there's so many things going on when you're sort of winding down from your current career and, like you say, deciding whether you're going to move abroad, or a lot of people now are deciding just travel abroad more extensively, so they need a house, or wherever they live, they need something that they can button up and go for a few weeks or a few months or whatever it might be. And I know now it was 10 years ago this month that I moved to Mexico, and there just are so many things going on as you're switching your insurance and changing your address and making sure you receive your mail when you're on the road and all these kind of things. So yes, just a lot going on. So very good suggestion. So what else do you see in terms of factors here?
Well, the number 2 reason is by having an income stream, you'll be saving some money. I mean, obviously a big incentive to moving to a foreign destination, besides the laid-back lifestyle, is lower cost of living. I mean, imagine paying $500 a month for rent as opposed to a $1,200 or $1,500 mortgage back in the U.S. or Canada, or spending $3 for a great lunch as opposed to $30 for a lunch. So by having an income stream up and going, you're going to preserve those retirement funds. You're not going to have to break open that retirement piggy bank and start digging into the savings because you've already established that income stream.
Yeah, that's a great point. Is that I talk to a lot of people, especially when I go to international living conferences, who say that they kind of got a chicken and egg problem. Is that they want to move to take advantage of the lower cost of living, but they can't afford to move yet. And certainly for many people, this is a way to be able to afford that and get the ball rolling. And when some of the options now, like Airbnb and VRBO, people are thinking in terms of renting out their current home, and this is a big win for lots of people in that world. So something certainly to consider.
Yeah, absolutely.
All righty. Other thoughts on this?
Well, yeah, the third reason I'd like to talk about is your location can possibly affect the type of jobs that you either can bid on or win. Let's say, for example, that you've decided to relocate to Ecuador. Okay, so you've made the move to Ecuador and you haven't set up your freelance business yet. So you log into Upwork and you want to get started up, putting your profile together and whatnot. Well, Upwork is going to detect that your computer's IP address is in Ecuador. So it's going to give you a location in Ecuador. And you might ask yourself, well, so what? Well, the reality is that the vast majority of the best freelance jobs, and thus the best clients, are in the English-speaking world. So naturally, their preference is to have those jobs done by somebody who's a native English speaker. And there's a lot of clients out there that will use the freelancer's location as one of their hiring criteria. So if you're a native English speaker and you want to work on some proofreading and editing jobs, for example, that require native speakers, you could be wasting your time trying to convince somebody that you're a native English speaker when your location shows up as Ecuador. So now, and I do realize that Upwork has changed a lot of this recently. In fact, I know one of my fellow coaches is actually signed up as a US-based freelancer from Mexico. So it can be done. However, it's just a lot easier if you get it done before you move overseas, because you don't want to spend a lot of time trying to convince a potential client that you are a native English speaker, just because your location says you're in Ecuador.
Right. It's kind of streamlined when you come in from the United States or Canada. And I know that that's one of the things that was interesting to me when I moved to Mexico, is that you seem to go through a different security loop. They say if you're in the United States or Canada, that's one set of processes, but it's a whole lot different once you get into the other. And I had to do things like scan copies of my passport and send copies of my U.S. driver's license and that kind of thing. And you can avoid all of that for the most part, and realize that these security rules are changing all the time. But generally, companies tend to be most vigilant against signups and connections coming from outside the United States and Canada. So if you can do that, that's best. So good. Anything else we should be thinking about in this, Wes?
Well, yeah, there's one other thing that you obviously need to take into consideration, and that's taxes. And, I know with that kind of worms, you can fish for an entire year, but, it's something you do need to consider, and where you domicile your business certainly has tax implications. So it would certainly behoove you to seek qualified tax advice in order to make sure that you're set up properly to deal with all your taxes, and that you maximize your benefit and whatnot. So that's
Yeah,
something that unfortunately we have to deal with. So
yeah. Let me just add that in the United States, we've just had a new tax law passed, and these don't come along very often. I think the last one was 20 years ago, something like that, and that will change could potentially change your options for setting up your business. Should you have an LLC? Should you have a corporation? Should you work as an individual? And so, especially if you're in the United States or in Canada, as tax laws change, you want to make sure that you're having a conversation with your tax professional, because we don't give tax advice. That's something that you really it depends so much on your current situation, what assets you have, what income you have potentially from pensions or social security or that kind of thing. So very important to seek out your own uh, custom recommendation on that basis, but just know that a lot of things have changed. And even for those of you that are freelancing now and may have set your business up in a certain configuration, with the new tax law, you want to touch base with your accountant or financial professional and see if there might be something, any changes that you want to make, that kind of thing. So very important to consider. So good, Wes. This is very helpful. Any wrap up thoughts?
yeah, you bet. I mean, and I have to believe that most of the people on the call tonight, are working towards the freedom that freelancing can bring. The freedom to work from anywhere they want, to work the hours that they want, and all of that. And with the global internet coverage expanding rapidly, it's really easy to connect to the freelance economy from anywhere in the world that you want. So, but establishing yourself first as a freelancer before you make the move abroad means that you'll be able to quickly pick up where you left off, that you will be able to continue earning an income, and that will give you a lower stress level and give you more time to enjoy the lifestyle that you want. So, don't complicate your life any further. Start your freelancing business before you make that move overseas. You'll be glad that you did.
Great point. Yeah, that saves you a lot of frustration once you get going. Like you said, Wes, certainly doesn't mean you can't start it after you moved. And for those of you that may have moved, don't feel like all is lost. But it just saves you time. I remember when I first moved to Huatulco, something that should be as simple as getting your water turned on at the water company took about 4 days, and a few copies of my passport and driver's license, and copies of the deed for the property. And I mean, it gets pretty complicated pretty quick, a lot of times in foreign countries, and we're sort of used to a level of customer service, although the same thing with the large utilities and that sort of thing. There's a lot of frustration even in the United States and Canada with that. So great advice. Very good, Wes. Well, how can people get in touch with you if they want to ask you any questions, learn a little bit more about this, or talk to you about general issues they might have in terms of freelancing?
Well, there should be an article in the chat box that basically covers the points that we talked about tonight, and will have my contact information. And so all you have to do is click on the link in the chat box, and you'll get an article that covers the points that we talked about tonight. So I wish everybody successful freelancing.
Very good. Thanks, Wes. Take care.